to another episode of The Scholars Table, where we explore the journeys and insights of leading public health figures. We are honored today to have Professor Fallin, who is the James W. Curran Dean of Rollins School of Public Health at Emory University, join us today. Under Professor Fallin's leadership, the U.S. News and World Report recently ranked Emory as the number 3 School of Public Health. Before her tenure at Emory, she served as the chair of the Department of Mental Health at Johns Hopkins University. With a rich background in neurodevelopmental and genetic epidemiology and public health advocacy, Professor Fallin brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to our discussion today. We will explore her academic journey, the strategies behind Emory's rise in the rankings, the admissions process for prospective students, the various funding opportunities available, and particularly for international students, and several other essential topics. Without wasting much time, let's invite our special guest to the Scholars Table. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Professor Fallin. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning. It's such my pleasure to be with you.
Awesome. So I want us to start off from your background. Reading your profile, I realized you are Hopkins for some time, which was quite surprising. I don't know the reason why you left us, but I would like you to share some insights into your early academic journey and how those experiences have influenced your career so far in public health.
Sure. So, yes, I spent 22 years at the Bloomberg School, and I would say Hopkins will always be part of my family. When I finished graduate school in genetic epidemiology in 2000, I came straight to the Department of Epidemiology at Hopkins and worked in the genetic epidemiology division there for about 12 years before I became the chair of the Department of Mental Health, also at the Bloomberg School. And then, as you said in your kind introduction, in addition to the privilege of chairing a Department of Mental Health, I also was the director of the Wendy Klag Center for Autism and Developmental Disabilities, which was truly an honor, named after Dean Klag, who was dean before Dean McKenzie, and it was named in honor of his late wife, Wendy, and also in service of their dedication as a family to autism and developmental disabilities. They have an adult daughter on the spectrum. And so it was a really wonderful experience at the Bloomberg School, as you know, as a current student and graduate, that the students that you get to interact with from all over the world and the caliber of those students is just phenomenal, as well as the faculty and staff that work on the education and practice missions of the school, and research missions of the school are just really great. And so I loved every moment of it. Why did I leave? For a couple of reasons, but as I had spent about 7 years as chair and really loved the leadership opportunities of being a chair at the Bloomberg School and really helping to nurture and love the entire school, I recognized the contribution you can make as a dean. I am from the Panhandle of Florida, which is close to Atlanta, and my mother is 84. And so when thinking about these kind of leadership opportunities, I would only do it at a place that has some of those similar features, like I just said about Hopkins, which is really amazing students, really amazing faculty and staff, people who are mission driven and doing incredible things. And I get to now be at a place where I can drive to see my mom. So that's how I ended up here, but not for a lack of love for the Bloomberg School.
I know recently the U.S. News and World Report ranked Emory as the number 3 School of Public Health. What key strategies or initiatives do you believe contributed to this achievement?
So we're really proud to be recognized by our peers in that way, although rankings are only one measure of success of a school of public health. And it's really great that there are so many amazing schools of public health here in the US and in fact around the world. And so it's wonderful to be a part of all of that. In terms of some of the special things that we do here at Emory, it's a fantastic group of people who are mission driven, who come here because they love public health. And you see that in our faculty and our staff that work on research and practice projects, and in our students. Some of the specific things that I think are really important and distinguishing for us are our location. So, because we're right next to the CDC, and also we're the home of the Task Force for Global Health and Care, and the Carter Center, and many other international agencies that do public health work, our students get an opportunity while they're here training to have that practical global experience, and that serves them well once they graduate and go on to do the public health work across the globe. And so that's been a really, sort of wonderful part of my experience here in the last 2 years at Rollins. And that's, just one piece of what I think is why our peers have recognized us in this way, but we're really proud of that.
Yeah, I think that the part of Emory being very close to leading public health centers was something that nearly drew me to Emory. I visited there, I think, late last year to meet a colleague who did his MPH there, and I mean he I can see the growth and the strength of the program at Emory. For one, I believe the campus is much better than our one building department. Anyway, so can you share any recent developments or initiatives within the Rollins School of Public Health that prospective students should be aware of?
Sure. So I think one of the things that stands out about our program really is this nurturing and support of students from the time you start an application through to when you become an alum, and everything in between. And the way we've had that structured is we have all kinds of, not only during orientation, but throughout your time here, professional development opportunities. And I should just joke a little bit about orientation. Our orientation is over a week long because there are so many different aspects that we want to make sure you're poised for and that you're set up for. And it ends with what we call Rollins Tier Day, which is a way for all of our students to go out in the Atlanta community and sort of recognize what the opportunities are, both within your public health training, but also in your own personal passions, to get engaged in the community while you're here. Because no matter where you are in the world, being part of your local community is as important as being part of your global or national communities. And so from that orientation experience, while you're here, there are all kinds of opportunities to be a part of community engagement, to be a part of professional development, like building your resume or CV, like leadership skills, conflict skills, whatever it may be. We're having those kinds of opportunities throughout the 2 years. And we actually capture this in something called the LEAD program, where as you're going through the process, you get recognized for attending these kinds of professional development things. And so at the end, if you get a certain number of those, you get different levels of LEAD medals, and you get to wear something at the end that recognizes that kind of work that you've put in to your own professional development and to public health as a profession while you're doing your kind of in-class work and these other things. So there are many other pieces, but in the interest of time, I think that one's a really cool one that stands out and recognizes how we nurture the student experience, but also how students take advantage of these kinds of infrastructures that we have in place.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I could tell the level of support there for international students, because most of my colleagues who graduated from Emory, landed their first job within a few months, and some of them get the support even across the School of Medicine to pursue their interests if clinical residency is what they are passionate about. An important process of the public health journey is the application, the admission cycle, and the criteria for admissions. Could you walk us through how the admissions criteria is made in Rollins School of Public Health, and the qualities that really stands out in applicants that you're looking for?
Sure. So the quantitative things, you have to have a GPA of 3.0 or above on the 4.0 scale, but we don't require a GRE. And beyond that, really, it's about qualitative things. It's about, have you expressed in your personal statement why you have a passion for public health, why this is such an exciting area for you to be in, and how you want to contribute. And in that, if you can describe how you've already had experiences, either directly in public health or in other areas where you see how a degree in public health can help connect and expand your education and your impact. It's really about that story and about your passion for doing public health work.
Okay. Uh, so in terms of deciding which candidates, I know you mentioned a GP of 3. Is it like a hard stop? Anything below 3.0, it's no review at all.
So it's a great question, Vanda, and I think we lean more on the story that I just told you about and sort of what someone's potential is because of their life story and their passion for public health. The GPA requirement is really to make sure that you're set up for success, that if you're coming here and you really don't have a lot of background in, some aspect of the things that you'll take in the courses in a master's program, for example, we would want to make sure that you somehow get the prep you would need before you show up so that you're
Okay.
not struggling once you're here. So it's not impossible that there would be something lower than that, but that's why that floor exists. And so if there are cases where someone is either they're feeling like, oh, I'm not prepared for this hard statistics class or for some, qualitative interview class, whatever it might be, we try to partner them with sort of preemptive early training before they arrive so that they can feel more prepared.
Okay. So in terms of strong applicants, what would you say would distinguish a successful applicant to Emory's program?
I think really understanding what the program is that you're applying for. So we offer in the master's world, we offer MPHs in each of our 6 departments, and then some MPHs that go across departments. And so, for example, if you're interested in a master's of public health in global and environmental health, really understanding how the components of what you'd learn from global health and what you'd learn from environmental health are critical to what you want to do next in your training or your career. And so really that making that match between the program you're applying to and the experiences and education that you want, and then telling the story of how what you've done up to that point makes you a great applicant or a great candidate for doing that work.
Okay, so in other sense, it's the element demonstrating the element of fit. It's really important in your applications.
That's right.
I think one of the essential barriers that people struggle with, especially for international students, is funding and scholarships. So for students who are aspiring to apply to the program, what funding opportunities or scholarships are available for the general students body and also specifically for international students?
Sure. So we are a global school, and international students are just an incredible part of what our student population and experience are like. And so we try very hard to give as much information and to make it as easy as possible to go above some of the barriers that you've mentioned. So the first thing we do is during the admissions process, we offer a virtual information session solely for our international applicants. And that's so we can talk through with you the different financial options, as well as other things about what it means to be an international student coming to Atlanta for your time as a student. So some of the things to highlight, which I think are really important. The first is our scholarships, and we call them merit scholars. These are open to everyone. These are not restricted to domestic students. And in fact, if you apply by the SOFIS deadline, which is usually January 5th, you are automatically a candidate for consideration for those merit awards. Each program, so each MPH program within the different departments, will nominate students or candidates from from that pool at the January 5th deadline to receive merit scholarships. And so that's a great way that international students are getting scholarship offers. We do also have some need based scholarships. And then through work with our financial office, we certainly have some avenues for loans that don't need co signature. And so that is another thing that our finance group can talk through with candidates. So between those sources of scholarship funding and loan opportunity, we try to work with each person in terms of where they are. The other thing that's I think important to mention, and I don't think I've covered yet, we have something called the Rollins Earn and Learn program, REAL. So we call it the REAL program. And this is a program where we place students with employers where we pay half of the money for that student's payment for that work, and the employer pays the other half. So the student is getting full pay for doing the work that they're doing, but it is a great opportunity for employers because they get these wonderful students for a reduced cost, and we get the opportunity to place our students in many different public health settings. So sometimes they're within our school, but most of the time they're either across other parts of Emory University or importantly across other entities. And that includes Task Force, Carter Center, CDC. Some are local organizations, and some are global organizations. And so I mention that because international students are eligible for those, depending on the employer, but generally there are always protected real positions that international students will be eligible for so that they can take advantage of that program. And it's such a cool thing because you're getting paid while you're here, but you're also real world experience in an area that could benefit you, either because then you may take a job with that organization when you graduate, or it's just set you up with the right experiences that will make you more marketable for the next thing you're going to do.
In Hopkins, we have um, different packages depending on the strength of your application. You can have full scholarship with stipend, or you can have a portion of your tuition waived, or you can have only like 20% of your tuition waiver. How is the Emory scholarship package like?
Yeah, so we also have multiple options in those packages. So our merit-based or excellence-based scholarships, some are, entire scholarship, meaning entire tuition covered, and sometimes a small stipend, or the REAL program, which is a work opportunity that earns income. And some are 75%, some are 50%, and then some are slightly lower than that. That's the different levels, and again, it really depends on fit between the candidate and the program, how those are selected. The other thing to say is sometimes it's not the scholarship at all, but still a candidate will be eligible and offered the REAL program, which is kind of like a scholarship because it's this idea that you have an opportunity to work with an organization for pay. So you know that you'll have some guaranteed income while you're part of the program.
Awesome. In Hopkins, we have different packages depending on the strength of your application. You can have full scholarship with stipend, or you can have a portion of your tuition waived, or you can have only like 20% of your tuition waiver. How is the Emory scholarship package like?
Yeah, so we also have multiple options in those packages. So our merit-based or excellence-based scholarships, some are, entire scholarship, meaning entire tuition covered, and sometimes a small stipend, or the REAL program, which is a work opportunity that earns income. And some are 75%, some are 50%, and then some are slightly lower than that. That's the different levels, and again, it really depends on fit between the candidate and the program, how those are selected. The other thing to say is sometimes it's not the scholarship at all, but still a candidate will be eligible and offered the REAL program, which is kind of like a scholarship because it's this idea that you have an opportunity to work with an organization for pay. So you know that you'll have some guaranteed income while you're part of the program.
I know, like for every student, especially both international and local students, the aim for a graduate degree is to beat the market or is to be competitive in the job market. Could you share a bit about opportunities for students after their graduation? If you know the numbers, how many people get a job after their MPH program at Emory?
Sure. So, about 90% of our graduates have a job or additional educational pursuit within 6 months of graduating. We're really proud of that. We work really hard with our career services office to make sure that we have empowered our students as they're finishing up. We have career fairs every fall and every spring. And so we work with our partners that are oftentimes our employer partners for the real program and also partners because they know the quality of the MPH graduates from Rollins, and so they're very eager to get to know our graduating students so that they can be part of their workforce. And we do mock interviews through our coaching group within the career services, all kinds of things to help folks prepare. And so we're proud that that pays off for folks. The other is because we do all this kind of embedded practice based work while you're in the MPH program, most students get a lot of contacts through that. And so they're able to reach out to a kind of broad set of folks that might have opportunities for them. And so it's really fun to see how our alumni end up engaging pretty quickly with their next steps in their careers and then becoming part of the alumni force that then gives back and says, hey, now I want to be a part of helping the next generation of MPH students as they graduate to find placement. And now I don't know the exact numbers, but I think amongst our alum, we may have folks in about 80 countries, something like that, over the years of having alums placed in different places. So pretty exciting.
Yeah, that seems like a very promising opportunity. And I know one aspect of Emory that draw a lot of international students is the length of their program, which, I mean, for some department is 2 years. So it gives you the opportunity to kind of network well, to take your time and really immerse yourself into the various opportunities or internships that are around. So I want you to talk a little bit about opportunities for students to gain more like a hands-on experience or work in real-world public health projects whilst they are at Emory.
Sure. So that's one thing that we are really excited about to offer our students. So from the time you get here, we are figuring out ways for you to get matched up for your what we call APE, which is your applied practicum experience. Many of our folks do this around the globe. Some of them also do it in Atlanta. So you will have that applied partnership kind of experience for sure. And then many of our folks also do our real program, which is then a paid work experience. And beyond those, there's so much research and practice work that we're doing that naturally, as you're going through the 2 years, you will end up embedding in other kinds of programs that are with community organizations, government organizations, even industry that have a kind of public health face. And that has been, I think, really rewarding for our students and our staff and faculty that get to engage in all those. We have particular programs that help with the placement for things like APEs in different parts of the globe. Sometimes they are in collaboration with Carter Center and other organizations, and sometimes they are just directly in collaboration with an in-country program that we've developed a partnership with.
Awesome, awesome. So, I mean, you've mentioned, the various collaborations or the partnerships that the university has with other entities. Are students able to experience? I know, like the CDC is closed. Are students able to experience, having an internship or maybe working across to experience how the CDC functions?
Yes, absolutely. One of the vast majority of both APE and real experiences for our students is with the CDC, both by walking literally next door for the buildings that are there, but also a lot of the CDC work, as you know, is global. And so sometimes it's through virtual or geographic engagement in whatever the project may be across the globe. But they are, by far our largest partner in the kinds of things that I've described. And then another thing to say about the 2-year program and your timing beyond as an international student, you mentioned this when talking about other programs, but STEM certification is critical. And it is true that all of our programs have STEM eligibility. And so that's a really important piece for our international students as they're thinking about what graduation and next steps look like.
Awesome. We are almost getting to the end of the session, and I think one important aspect is, for you to walk us through your vision for the Rollins School of Public Health. I've spoken to a couple of alumni, and they are excited about this particular conversation, so I'm sure they are going to be watching. So what key initiatives do you plan to implement or achieve in the coming years of your leadership?
Sure. So when I first got here, we engaged in a strategic plan with our faculty, staff, students, alumni, and our community partners. And that was really informative and has set the stage for what we plan to do for the next several years. And so one of the main areas, and hopefully this is relevant to potential students in particular, is we want to change who we teach, how we teach, and what we teach to be best prepared for the public health needs of the future. And so in the who we teach, that means making sure we can meet students where they are. And I do mean physically, but I also mean in terms of where they are in their careers. We heard a lot about, well, we have this beautiful, wonderful 2-year program where you come here, you live in Atlanta, you do this great work. That is sometimes difficult if you have a family, if you already have a practice, if you already have a career, to be able to commit that amount of time. And so we are expanding ways in which we can extend our part-time options so that you may not be able to commit 2 years, but you can still do a program like ours, and our fully online options, so that if you need to do completely remote and then just have optional in attendance things, that's possible. So that's kind of who and to some extent how we teach. And then the what is to make sure that the critical components that we see now and anticipate for the future are covered in the curriculum. And so some of those areas are making sure that all the kind of curriculum is centered in health equity and cultural humility, and understanding what a frame like that means in all aspects of the public health work that we do. Another would be communication, that as we are doing public health, our discovery and even our implementation won't work in the ways that we hope it will to benefit a whole population if we're not effective communicators. And so making sure that everyone leaves having been exposed to skills development around communication. And then lastly, sort of authentic partnerships, understanding, having our students as they come through our programs understand what it means to be, we are academic public health in some ways, but what it means to be an authentic partner from the academic side through the public health and service delivery side. And so those are the kind of what pieces that we're now looking at carefully and infusing into our curriculum. So that's just one aspect of the new things happening. I mentioned health equity in terms of that curriculum part. We are really expanding deeply our faculty that are dedicated to health equity, our broad curriculum, as I already mentioned, and even how we measure and think about metrics of success. How do we know when we're achieving equity in ways that we can articulate, and how do we know when we're still missing the mark? And so that's another area that we're spending a lot of time on. You mentioned that I used to chair a Department of Mental Health at the Bloomberg School. That's true. And I have such an affection for the importance of public mental health, or the idea that we can't really achieve public health if we don't pay attention to mental and behavioral health. And so as a school, we're also connecting those dots and really making sure that our folks who are working in other areas of physical health have the support they need to also develop research in mental health. So, for example, we have an international diabetes group that just does amazing work in diabetes prevention and treatment across the globe. And they have been running programs and, in fact, some clinical trials showing that if you screen for and treat depression in the context of people who are being seen for diabetes, you increase all outcomes. You make all outcomes better. And so that kind of partnership between the mental and behavioral health crowd and the physical health crowd, no matter what area of public health you're passionate about, is a really important one to us as a school. So we're working a lot in that area. Trying to make sure that this idea of how you are an authentic partner in practice is part of everything we do is another area where we're really creating the infrastructure. And what do I mean by that? I mean, think about all the ways in which different parts of a school may touch a single community partner. Say it's the Department of Public Health, in our case, in the state of Georgia. Many different people touch them because they're working on vital stats for this, or HIV prevention for that, or maternal health, right? And sometimes that can be confusing for those partners, but it can also be confusing for a school if you don't have some kind of harmony and ability to hub that activity and place people effectively in the different ways that could be meaningful collaborations. And so we're working on the infrastructure to do that better. And then communication, I mentioned in terms of education, but that's another part of our strategic plan. Not only do we want to make sure that the educational offerings while students are here include skills training in communication, we want to make sure that as a school, we are doing the best job of communication possible. And so that means making sure our own faculty and staff also have the training and support that they need, making sure that we are communicating clearly, consistently, and hopefully with some entertainment or fun to public audiences so that people can make the best decisions if they are legislators or if they are just people out in the world trying to be healthy. So that gives you a flavor of some of those components of where the strategic plan is coming in. And it's been fun. We're about 6 months in, so we start now to have 6-month updates on how we're doing. And so it's been fun to see where we're making progress and where we're still laying the groundwork for more progress. And hopefully you can tell I'm pretty excited about what we're doing.
Yeah, I can see there are a lot of exciting elements to this, and I'm particularly happy about the element of communication because I think oftentimes we've learned the hard way that if we don't take the center stage in communicating our findings or communicating with the community, our work becomes 10 times much harder. So thank you for that. But I want us to talk about your interest in public health. I know you're mainly interested in neurodevelopmental issues. Can you tell us something that is emerging in the space of neurodevelopment and perhaps genetic epidemiology that you'll be excited to share with us?
Sure. So I got into autism work through the lens of genetic epidemiology. So this is normally where you think about how do you find the genes that are causing a particular disease. And that kind of biological frame helps you to think about prevention or treatment strategies through that lens. But what I learned early on was that that cannot be the only lens. The kind of psychological and sociological frames of cause are just as important. And so, from very early on in my career, it wasn't just about genetics, it was about all aspects of epidemiology. What are the environmental exposures that we might be able to change policy around? What are the other social determinants that we need to keep in mind when we're thinking about what it means to live in the world with autism or a developmental disorder? So all that kind of richness of what public health does comes to life just in thinking about autism epidemiology. And I think about that when I think about all the areas of public health that we do, that in each case, while we do really cool things on the biological side, We also do really cool things on understanding the social determinants, on understanding the psychosocial elements of most of the things that we do. And we think about not only the individuals, of course, but really the communities, the populations, and the levers at the population level that can make a difference. And so that's how I frame all that I think about in public health. But it really does stem from those are the tools that are important in the areas that I've worked most on, which are autism and other developmental disabilities.
Awesome. Um, so let's look at the future of public health education post pandemic. How do you see public health education evolving in the next decade or two?
Yeah, so this is a big one, right? And I have an opinion that I'm going to share with you, but I think it's a place where we all need to be having these discussions and thinking through what experiences are of current students, what experiences are of employers, of organizations that deploy public health work. The first thing that I would say is the content areas. So I gave you a little bit of a glimpse of places where we think are important that in terms of content, we up our game in training. So communications, practice-based partnerships, leadership in the kind of human dialogue aspect of what we do as public health are just as critical as the content areas, like understanding the details of infectious disease or understanding the details of cardiometabolic disorders, et cetera. So I think that is one area where we know just content expansion is going to be important. Another part of the future of public health education is this meeting folks where they are in terms of their educational or career journey, that we are not a monolithic set of students anymore. It's not, maybe we never were, but it's not just folks coming out of a bachelor's degree and saying, okay, I'm going right into a master's, and then after that, I'm going right into a doctoral program. It's people who are committing their time to working in real world situations and then figuring out what's the right moment for them to get the next kind of degree. And so, how do we create systems of education that allow for that to happen? And then the last area is just in continuing ed. Often, what you need is not a whole new master's degree or a doctoral degree, but you're working on a project where it turns out you've been in charge of something that needs, you know, implementation outcomes. And you're like, I don't really know what that is. So, what you really need is not another master's degree. You need a series of courses that are really about implementation, science, and measurement that will inform what you're doing today. And so that kind of continuing ed or badging system or things like that is another area that I think is really critical for public health education, so that we provide this kind of content without sort of putting up barriers to people having to dedicate whole years of their life to getting that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sounds exciting. So for students and early career professionals who are watching this, what advice would you give us?
Don't give up. The work that you're doing is incredibly important, and lean on your set of peers and mentors to keep doing great work. And in terms of forward-looking advice, um, trying to recognize what is the next best thing for you that would help you to achieve the impact you want to achieve. So once you think through, what do I want to do? What kind of impact do I want to make? That will help you to figure out, is it another degree? Is it a different kind of exchange experience? Is it a different kind of mentoring experience? Is it short courses? What are those things that will be important for you to really reach whatever it is that you set out to accomplish? And to then share that publicly with your peers, with your mentors, with your mentees, so that you build a support network that can help make sure you get there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for making the time. I know how busy your schedule is. We are very grateful for you making the time to join us today. So we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
So my pleasure. And thank you for all you're doing. You are really supporting so many people through these kinds of activities. Man, it's just really incredible to watch. And so on behalf of all of us, thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your kind words.